let's do a fun one this week. Touhou is something that is extremely important to me, because without it, I don't even know if I would be here on YouTube or into D&D at all. I'm not sure how common it is to be able to look at one seemingly minor event in your life and trace that one thing to where you currently are. Sure, larger events are easier to look at as a turning point in your life, but even the smallest thing can influence where your life goes. And as strange as it might seem, for me, a single Touhou video on YouTube posted over 15 years ago was that event for me. From that one video, I got into the Touhou games, I found other anime I liked, and eventually found my way into my very first TTRPG game. Now some of you might have no idea what Touhou is. Maybe you just like the character designs, or you think the music is amazing, because it is. And while I would love to go over the broader story elements here, there's just too much. There are a ton of Touhou games, that I suck at mind you, plus getting some of these games to run on modern hardware can be a bit of a struggle. But I will cover some story elements that are shared between games, and a few other things. Oh, and as for the characters here, we are going to be making a few of the fan favorites, including my personal favorite, the Ordinary Magician, Marisa Kirisame. Genshoku is a very weird place, called the Land of Illusions or the Land of Fantasy. Here you can find gods drinking and partying with ghosts, vampires, and fairies, all the while just a few hours ago one of these two girls were tearing their way through the land, beating up anyone that got in the way of solving whatever incident was going on. And yes, pretty much everyone, including those that were causing trouble in the first place, get invited to said party. And these parties usually end up being held at the Hakure Shrine. Kind of a center point for, well, a lot of things in Genshoku, as much as it annoys Remu. But hey, it's the best and only way anyone's gonna come to her shrine, so she's probably just happy to get some free food. Now in Touhou games, or in Genshoku as a whole, I like to think of things as happening in 3 different stages, where most of the day is spent with characters just doing their own thing. Remu's trying to get rich, Marisa is researching or stealing books, fairies are playing pranks, and so on. That's the first stage. The second stage are the actual incidents, these being the driving forces of each game's plot, and they can range from the sky being suddenly covered in a red haze and a spooky mansion appearing, to a nuclear-powered crow causing trouble, or my personal favorite, a ghost trying to resurrect someone in a big tree by stealing all of the spring from Genshoku to make it bloom. The only thing is, she is that person, and she's just been dead for so long that she up and forgot. Oh, and this girl is half ghost, don't ask me how that works. And of course, Stage 3. After everything has calmed down, or enough people have been beaten in a Danmaku or spellcard duel, then it is time to party. But real quick, let's take a look at these duels that I mentioned, because these are how things are settled in Genshoku. Any disputes between yokai or yokai and humans that are able to duel are decided via spellcard duel, almost like a game. And like with any game system, there are rules to these. All the attacks have to be elegant, they need to have a meaning behind them, they need to have a unique name, and they have to be made into a physical spell card to be shown during the duel. But at the end of the day, it mostly boils down to throw a bunch of attacks in pretty patterns, and if you lose, you lose. You stop what you're doing and go about your day. No hard feelings. And there are no shortage of interesting characters throughout the Touhou series. I could sit here all day going over the lore for them. Hell, I don't even think one day would be enough time, considering these games, manga, and other books have been coming out since 2002. Or 1996 if you want to count the PC-98 games. Hell, a new game is going to come out in August of this year, Fossilized Wonders. Zune is an absolute madman and I love him. He's also super chill when it comes to fan-made games or other fan content, as long as you give him proper credit. But enough of that, there is just one more thing I want to talk about before we get to our first character here, and that is the Great Hakure Barrier, or the Barrier of Common Sense. This is what separates Genshoku from the real world. Inside this barrier, things are far from normal compared to the real world. Well, for the most part, science and technology have made it a lot harder for the majority of the population to believe in spirits, magic, and so on. And since belief is what allows yokai to exist in the first place, the barrier was erected to cut off the outside world, and to make a place where it's common knowledge that magic, gods, and yokai are real. And yes, some of them will try to eat you if you go into the woods at night. But that's not to say that some things can't pass through the barrier. Nature pretty much acts like it's not even there, so rivers, storms, forests, and anything else like that is completely unaffected. But if someone on either side tries to pass through, they will just end up walking in circles and coming back the way they came. There's also always the chance that someone gets spirited away to Genshoku, either by Yukari just bringing them there as a prank because she was bored, who by the way is one of the only yokai in Genshoku that can leave willingly because her power is broken, being able to create gaps in reality and destroy barriers. Now the other sadder way that something or someone might enter Genshoku is by being forgotten, as the fewer ties that something has to the real world, the easier it is for them to cross through the barrier. This leads to forgotten objects or people with little connections finding themselves crossing into Genshoku without even knowing it. Like radio towers, tanks, old technology, stuff like that. This barrier is also really weird because while it looks like a dome whenever it's depicted, it is not a dome at all. Because not only do the effects of the barrier extend downwards into the multiple different versions of the underworld or hell, but they also extend upwards all the way up to the moon if you really want to go visit the moon rabbits for whatever reason. I don't recommend it though, they will not welcome you with open arms. You know, looking at all this stuff again, the world of Touhou could make a really fun D&D campaign, with there being a bunch of different magic systems in place on top of different factions for other characters, and the rules for spell card duels and combat. And I think it'd be fun to see how that all might play out. And hey, if you want to see me do that, since Metal has absolutely no idea what's going on in Touhou, why not do all the YouTube stuff? Liking the video, subscribing if you aren't already, and if you're already a fan of Touhou, why don't you tell me your favorite character in the comments below? It helps out the channel a bunch, and if you do these, I might be able to cover a part 2 for this series, and again, do a campaign video on it. Okay, I think that's, well no, it's not really enough, but like I said, we don't really have enough time to cover all the things I would like, but some of that will hopefully get cleared up with our first character, one of the 2 playable girls, Remu Hakure. Huh? Where is she? Hey, come on, it's your turn, get up. No, you can't just... Whatever, fine. I want to talk about the other one first anyway. So, plan B, since Remu is being herself, that being lazy, we are instead going to start with my favorite character, Marisa Kirisame, our kleptomaniac magician. Now, Marisa is the player 2 option to Remu in-game, and while Remu gets all of her power because, well, she's Remu and she is the Shrine Maiden of the Hakure Shrine, Marisa worked extremely hard to keep up with Remu, and takes a lot of pride in her abilities as a magician while also running a small shop out of her house. Outwardly though, Marisa is rough, energetic, and pretty rowdy, and mostly hides how good-natured she is behind jokes, straight-up stealing, and lying. She's also usually the one that ends up pushing Remu to actually get off her butt and work, since it wouldn't really do her any good if Remu fell behind just because she was being lazy. And that drive to always keep up with Remu, to keep improving, is where her penchant for stealing kinda comes from. She's not just breaking into the Scarlet Devil Mansion to annoy Patchouli, although I'm sure that's a bonus. She borrows books on magic to better herself, claiming that they can always come back and get them when she dies, since she won't need them anymore. Also, I'm not sure why, but despite Marisa's love for big flashy lasers, her natural affinity for magic leans more towards water-based spells. But she just chooses not to use those, focusing on spells like her Master Spark and its many different flavors of big-ass laser. But even with handicapping herself, Marisa's talent for magic is acknowledged, as it's pretty rare for a human to achieve such a high level of understanding given their short lifespans compared to yokai like Alice or Patchouli, who were once human. So, with all that in mind, let's cover some stuff real quickly here. Obviously, Marisa is a human, and while we don't know a lot about her past, she does currently run a second-hand magic shop, albeit she doesn't have a lot of customers since she decided to set up in the Forest of Magic and doesn't really advertise. But she still sells stuff. Potions, medicine, magic pots, and other random things she makes or borrows. So I gave her the Magic Initiate feat and the Merchant background for the Lucky feat, since somehow she's not out of business yet. We also know that unlike Remu, Marisa was either taught magic by a Tanuki named Mami, or that she did it through hard work and stealing magic textbooks. So her stats should be pretty simple: high intelligence for learning magic pretty much on her own, and something I didn't mention, but Marisa is one of the faster characters within Touhou, with the most notable character that is faster than her being a bird girl whose entire thing is being fast, so I give her pretty high dex. Along with that, she's oddly strong for her size, so a 13 in strength and 12 in con seem pretty good. Oh, and while she is known for lying a lot, it's never like she was actively deceiving anyone since they were so easy to see through, so I gave her a 10 in charisma, and she's going to dump her wisdom, mostly because she needs to dump something. I hate using that excuse, but it's how it is. I have an 8, I've got to put it somewhere. And these stats lend really well to Marisa being a wizard, or I could see her as an artificer, maybe an alchemist if you want to focus on her mushroom gathering and turning them into potions thing, or an artillerist for her mini Hakuro. But given that she only uses that for one spell and a few different variations on it, along with most of her other stuff ending up as spell cards anyway, I'm gonna go with the wizard. And speaking of spell cards, Marisa does have quite a few of her own outside of just blasting lasers, which are mostly themed after stars or astronomical events, but she also has some that she borrowed or just straight up stole, like her non-directional laser, which is not how lasers work, Marisa. But her main spell, the one she's most well known for, is her Master Spark, which is fired directly from her mini Hakuro, that little magic furnace thing she uses. And she has a few different versions of this, but at the end of the day, they are just one big-ass laser. Well, aside from the time when she straps it to the back of her broom and uses it to go even faster. Hell, this spell is so well known that it has a reference in League of Legends with Lux and her final spark. Okay, so here's the thing, I was going to give Marisa a few levels in Rogue. You know, just to be funny, she steals things all the time, but Marisa isn't really all that sneaky about it. She literally walks into the front door, yells that she's going to borrow things, and takes them. There's no mystery about who broke in and stole all the books. You know exactly who did it. So instead of that, I just fully invested her in Wizard for a few reasons. Again, she was taught magic, either by a master or she learned it herself through books, which are both very impressive and sounds like a wizard to me. Plus, Wizard probably gets the most spells that fit how Marisa actually fights. Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Magic Missile, Scorching Ray, and a ton more. Oh, and just because I want to, and I feel like I haven't disrespected spell lists enough recently, I think adding Eldritch Blast to her spell list is a great pick here, specifically for her non-directional laser, since once she gets to a high enough level, she will get 4 beams, just like the spell card. And to go along with that, I think the best option for her subclass is pretty easy. She doesn't divine the future, she doesn't summon creatures, or make illusions. Even if one of her attacks is called Illusory Laser, it is still very real. So instead, Marisa is going to be an Evoker, letting her add her Intelligence modifier to her cantrip damage. But really what Marisa is here for is way further down the line. Something to not only make her lower level spells more reliable, but also give Marisa her Master Spark. And like usual with Wizards, that is the 18th level feature, Spell Mastery, letting Marisa take 2 spells and use them forever. And for her, I'm going to take 2 super simple ones, Magic Missile for some guaranteed hits, and Scorching Ray for another laser attack. And you know, there's something I didn't really notice until now when looking for more line spells, but there are very few line-based spells in D&D. There's Lightning Bolt and Sunbeam, and that's kinda it. You could argue like the wall spells are lines, but that's not exactly the same. So a little flavoring will need to be done for a few of these spells, like you could just say Fireball is a big laser that explodes when it hits something, and so on. And while I also did my best to get a bunch of different spells for her various spell cards, my only real goal was to get Master Spark and her ability to fly with or without her broom. And thankfully both of these are actually really easy depending on how much flavor you want to add to her spells. And of course, being an 18th level wizard, her strongest spell is going to be Meteor Swarm, but I'm sure that's not going to be too hard to flavor in some way, as like blasting off multiple Master Sparks. And the flying thing is done with just the fly spell. As for her other spells, there's like 20 plus of them, so I will just show them here, or Goblin will. And obviously you can change these if you really want, but these are the ones I picked. Now, as far as it goes for her spells and wizard stuff, that's kind of it. But of course, being at level 18, Marisa gets 4 feats, and well, she's a spellcaster and one that uses long-ranged spells, so I gave her the Spell Sniper feat, and that's it. All her other ones actually go into ASIs for her stats, maxing out her intelligence and even upping her strength and dex if she does need to throw hands. Oh, and I'm not sure if you caught it here, but I did give her Tensor's Transformation, just in case. So I've kind of mentioned it here as we've gone through the video, but I am garbage at Touhou games, despite how much I love them. And I haven't really played any outside of the fighting games in a while, and I don't have the time to throw myself at them anymore like with other games. So my grasp on the story and lore for some of these characters is spotty at best. So if I got anything wrong, feel free to tell me in the comments. Marisa is a great character, and her rivalry with Remu is going to continue to push her to get stronger and stronger. Now only if she put as much effort as she does into yokai hunting, into advertising her shop, maybe she might get some more customers.
異変解決妖怪退治が巫女の仕事だろ
Okay, normally I do like a sponsor segment here, but not today. No sponsor this week. So if you want to support the channel, you can do that on Patreon. You get these sheets for just $1, or commission an entire team for yourself for $20. Now back to the video. Okay, so it looks like Remu is finally up and ready for her turn, so let's go. Remu is a bit of a weird character. She is the main character alongside Marisa for most of the games, and while Marisa works extra hard for her magic, Remu was just kind of born with it, gifted power as the Hakurei Shrine Maiden. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't really a lot of info on her upbringing or what she does in her day-to-day life. Just that she's always kind of been there at the shrine, and her and Marisa are best friends. So rather than doing that, let's go over some stuff that we do know about her personality and her powers. And like I've been teasing a little bit, Remu is pretty lazy. But this comes more from a lack of wanting to break her routines than it is not wanting to actually do anything at all. She just really doesn't like change and spends most of her days wrangling yokai that hang out at the shrine, maintain the barrier, and checking her donation box. And because of said yokai, she really doesn't get a lot of visitors and therefore doesn't get a lot of donations, making her pretty poor overall. Which is why she takes yokai extermination jobs in the first place. She's still gotta eat. Now on top of that, Remu has a bit of a temper and can fly off the rails pretty fast. She's very much a shoot first and ask questions later kind of girl, although thankfully she is just as quick to forgive once whatever got her mad in the first place is solved. And much like Marisa, Remu is a human, so just make her human as well. But where Marisa studied and worked hard for her magic, Remu got these powers gifted to her by the god of the Hakurei Shrine, that by the way, Remu doesn't even know the god that lives there. All she knows is that it's there, and it isn't really doing all that much. I would guess it's probably busy like keeping up the barrier, but I'm not sure, and neither is Remu. And these powers manifest in a few different ways, although with some of them it's kinda hard to tell if the powers come from her status as the Shrine Maiden, or if it's just some power that Remu was born with. Anyways, back on track, her main thing she uses in combat are the yin-yang orbs to fire her bullets. She can also create barriers that block attacks, explode, or teleport whoever touches them, can seal yokai, perform rituals, make paper charms to throw people, and so on. But her strongest and strangest power is her ability to float. And as weird as that seems, when I say float, I don't just mean that Remu can fly or hover in the air. No, Remu quite literally floats through life. If she's not paying attention and just goes with the flow, this ability will bend the world over its knee to make things easier for Remu. Like when she was taking a simple walk through the woods and these three fairies tried to play a prank on her by making her mistakenly trip into a river. Remu had no idea that there was going to be a river there, and because she wasn't paying attention, her ability kicked in and caused fish to leap to the surface of the water and act like stepping stones. And they did this so perfectly that Remu didn't even notice she crossed a river. And this is even stronger in combat, so much so that when turning this ability into a spell card for dueling, Marisa had to add a 1-minute time limit to her float power so things would be fair. Because using this in a fight lets Remu float away from reality, becoming transparent and intangible for the time, making attacks pass right through her while she can still fight back. And with this, I think you have a pretty clear image of what Remu is. Again, she's a human, and I gave her the Magic Initiate feat for Shillelagh so she can go smacking people with her Purification Rod, and the Shrine Maiden background for the Healer feat. Honestly, I'm not sure if I ever remember her doing any sort of healing outside of maybe herself, but hey, if she's channeling the power of the gods, I'm pretty sure she can heal something. And of course, lastly are her stats here, which are pretty simple and look like this. They might seem a bit odd, like her wisdom being so high when all of her get-rich-quick schemes fail, but she actually does know what she's doing when it comes to her job as a Miko and her other job as an exterminator. Even if she never really kills any yokai and just roughs them up until they're ready to talk. Outside of that, Remu is known for being pretty damn strong, and while she's not a tank, she's also not as fragile as the paper seals that she throws around. Now when it comes to her actual build, I had a few different ideas going into this, the first one being the Celestial Warlock. But this one just didn't feel right. Remu isn't really giving anything up to the god of the shrine other than her free time and financial well-being. That and the powers really don't match up very well. I also thought about going the route of the Divine Soul Sorcerer, giving her the entire Cleric and Sorcerer spell lists, but again, something just didn't feel right. So in the end, Remu ended up going with option number 3, which is the War Cleric. And yes, I chose the War Domain over others because some clerics heal damage taken, but others, like the War Domain, stop damage from happening in the first place by beating the stuffing out of whoever is trying to hurt their friends. And while Remu might be late to the party sometimes, I think this way of going about things fits her a lot better, plus it lets her have homing bullets with Guided Strike, adding a +10 to any attack roll she makes. It also gives her some really good spells for being up in melee like Shield of Faith and Spiritual Weapon, even if both of them have concentration now. But even better than that, and a great fit for the Yin Yang Orbs, is the 3rd level spell Spirit Guardians, dealing 3d8 radiant damage to any creature that comes within 15 feet of Remu for up to 10 minutes. And while the War Cleric doesn't technically get extra attack, they do get a bonus action attack up to 5 times per day. The limit seems kinda weird to me, but whatever. So something I've noticed recently is that a lot of my builds are going to higher levels. And yeah, that does tend to happen with longer running series or stuff like ZZZ and Star Rail, where the lore feats make characters super strong. And yeah, that's not stopping here. Again, Remu is one of the strongest characters in Touhou. Also, Marisa was level 18 and Remu is supposed to be stronger. So yeah, let's get to it. With a full dive into War Cleric, Remu gets features like War God's Blessing, letting her cast Shield of Faith or Spiritual Weapon without concentration, so she can in fact have them both up. Or better yet, pair it with Spirit Guardians for even more damage. Then at level 7, she gets Blessed Strikes, which I am so happy they changed. No longer is it a subclass specific feature, it is just a regular cleric feature that you get to pick from when you get it. The options being Divine Strikes for bonking or Potent Spellcasting for better cantrips. Remu could honestly go either way, but I would personally take Divine Strikes just for her Purification Rod. Continuing on though, on the way to her level 10 feature, Divine Intervention, she is also going to grab 2 feats. First is going to be Fate Touch for Misty Step, letting her teleport via barriers, and a slightly weird one, Rune Shaper. It's not a feat I've ever really even looked at before, but it works really well for Remu, giving her 2 different runes that symbolize different spells, and when she engraves those runes onto something, like say a paper seal, that thing stores the spell. And for Remu, I took the Death Rune, which gives her a free cast of Inflict Wounds, and the other one gives her a cast of Sanctuary for a protective charm. Just make sure not to move too far or else the runes do break. But after that, like I said, Remu gets Divine Intervention at level 10, giving her a free cast of any 5th level or lower cleric spell. She doesn't have to have it prepared, it just happens. You could flavor this either as her god coming through, or just part of her ability to float through life without any worry. Either or. And things are a little sparse from here, with only 2 more base cleric features, one at level 14 giving her better Divine Strikes, and the other one being at the very last level, level 20. But before she gets there, she does still have a few feats to get. And this next one is another one that I've never really touched on, and kind of forgot was even real. That being the Cartomancer feat, letting Remu take a card, or a paper seal in this case, and imbue a spell into it, She could use this for Hold Person or Charm Monster as a Sealing Charm, put the Harm spell into it if she really wants to mess someone's day up, or Purify someone with Greater Restoration since there's no spell limit on what she can put in the card. Hell, if she wanted to, she could put Wish in there. Remu is also going to grab a normal ASI at level 14 for a +1 Wisdom and a +1 Dex to round things out. And lastly, just before level 20, as another nod to her ability to float through life unabated, the Boon of Fate, letting Remu bend fate to her unconscious will by adding or subtracting 2d4 from any roll made within 60 feet of her once per fight. And the very last thing, I promise, this is level 20, there's nothing really past that, is Greater Divine Intervention, calling upon her god to cast Wish, meaning she could cast literally any spell in the game of 8th level or lower. And with just how many spells there are in this game, I'm sure she can find something that will help clear up the incident quickly enough for her to get home and get back to drinking tea and napping. But at the end of the day, whether she spends it lazing around the shrine, or going through Genshokyo beating up the locals to figure out why the weather's so messed up, Remu will uphold her duties as the Hakure's Shrine Maiden, even if it means she has to live a life of relative poverty. So when it came to picking the third character for this team, I had so many options to pick from. There's Shirno, the Ice Fairy, who's constantly trying to freeze over a lake, Vermilia Scarlet, the Vampire Master of the Scarlet Devil Mansion, or Alice Margatroyd, the Puppet Master Yokai who was once a normal human. Also, I'm pretty sure I got her name right, and like I've said before, I would love to cover more of these characters, but I just don't have time. So for this one, I decided to go with a fan favorite, a character that took inspiration from Dio Brando himself, the head maid of the Scarlet Devil Mansion, Sakuya Izuyo. And while Sakuya is called a human and is technically a human, she has been working at the Scarlet Devil Mansion for so long that her master, Vermilia Scarlet, hardly considers her one anymore, so I'll have a little bit of fun with that. So starting off, let's take a look at what we have for Sakuya's backstory.
There's nothing here!
So yeah, if you thought we didn't know a lot about Marisa or Remu, their lore is a treasure trove compared to what we have for Sakuya, at least in canon material. Pretty much all we know is that she works at the Scarlet Devil Mansion as a maid and has done so for a long time. She cleans, cooks, and can manipulate space-time to extend the interior of the mansion to give them even more room, or throw a literally infinite number of knives at her enemies. But enough stalling, let's get into this build. Like I said before, Sakuya is the head maid of the Scarlet Devil Mansion. She answers the door, cleans up the estate, and deals with lazy shrine maidens or klepto witches that break in. And Sakuya is damn good at it, well, aside from the part of keeping Marisa and or Remu out of the building. Using her ability to stop, speed up, or slow down time, she gets a ridiculous amount of work done in a really short amount of time, letting her clean the entire manor in record time and leaving her with plenty of room to make tea and snacks for Amelia, or take care of Flandre who is stuck in the basement. And while apparently she can reverse time to some extent, it only really goes to putting something back where it was, and she can't use this to repair something that has been broken. On the other hand though, she can use this power to effectively make a clone of herself or an alternate version of herself by splitting her timeline, letting there be two Sakuyas for a short while before the timelines collapse back into each other. Along with this, she's pretty intelligent, but can also be fairly blunt when talking to people that she doesn't like, Marisa. So for Sakuya, I gave her a custom background called the Maid for the alert feat so she can keep on her toes. And as for her species, well, again, she is technically human, but she's lived for so long that she can hardly be considered one anymore. And unlike Alice or Patchley, who used to be human and through magic transformed their bodies into those of yokai, Sakuya is still human all the way through. And I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that she can speed up or slow down how fast something moves through time, so she could easily be slowing down her own aging to a crawl. And both because I didn't want to make 3 humans in a row here, and I needed some more stuff that I could reflavor as time powers, I made Sakuya into an elf. But not into just any elf, an astral elf, giving her the Starlight Step feature letting her teleport up to 60 feet as a bonus action, which of course would just be her stopping time and dashing over there instead. Look, time-based powers aren't really something that are easy to come across in D&D. Even the Time Stop spell, which is a 9th level spell by the way, is just kinda bad. So just like I did when I made my original Time Killer Rogue a long time ago, I'm going to be reflavoring teleportation and other spells as time-stopping powers, mostly because the effect is the same either way. Oh, and just to get them out of the way, super quick, here are Sakuya's stats. She's pretty smart even if it's not in the same way as Marisa, and naturally being a mage, she is very nimble, so focus on intelligence and dex. With a little bit of con, charisma for manners, and again she dumps strength just because she doesn't need it. And now we can get to the fun part of mimicking time powers in D&D. Now there are a lot of ways you could use different abilities and spells to give the image of time manipulation, like Hold Person as freezing someone in time, Haste and Slow for speeding up and slowing down someone's time, and of course Teleportation, like with Misty Step, Starlight Step, and so on. And with Sakuya, her ability to mess with time also extends to space, since the two of them are linked, letting her expand or shrink spaces to some extent. So to get the direct time stuff out of the way real quick, Sakuya is going to take a few levels in the Chronergy School of Wizardry, letting her add her intelligence modifier to initiative rolls with temporal awareness, and change the outcome of rolls by rewinding time for just a moment with Chronal Shift. Wizard also gives her some of the spells I mentioned before, Haste, Slow, Hold Person, but also the spell Gift of Alacrity, making sure she will go first in combat. Mage Armor and Shield, again just reflavors as her using time powers to dodge. Magic Missile for a few of her knives, for even more of them, get the second level spell Cloud of Daggers along with Misty Step for more teleportation, and a favorite spell of mine, Wrist Pocket. Now being that Sakuya has 3rd level spells, that puts her at least level 5 of Wizard, but I'm going to up her to level 6 for the next feature, Momentary Stasis. Fully freezing a creature in time and incapacitating them until the end of your next turn or until they take damage, making them a super easy target for stabbing. But level 6 is where her time as a wizard is going to end since I want a few more things, like Sakuya's ability to split her timeline and create an entirely separate, but still very real Sakuya that can fight alongside her. And while she could go all the way to level 15 of Wizard for the 8th level spell Simulacrum, there is a much easier way to get a second her. And I think it works really well, that being the Echo Knight Fighter, with the Manifest Echo feature letting her summon a copy or alternate version of herself that she can swap places with at will, have attack for her, and make opportunity attacks for her as if it was the real Sakuya. And it can make even more attacks using the Unleash Incarnation ability, adding even more knives to the ever-growing wave of cutlery. And because of the way Momentary Stasis works, where they're frozen until the end of your next turn, Sakuya could hit you with this, wait until her next turn, attack you, Unleash Incarnation, Action Surge, attack again, and then Unleash Incarnation again for 6 attacks. But it's not done yet. First, she is going to increase her Dex at level 4 of Fighter, along with her Intelligence at level 4 of Wizard that I forgot to mention. But the main thing that's going to up her damage here is going to be a jump to her last class, that being the Soul Knife Rogue. Because not only would it be absolutely criminal of me to not make the crazy Knife Maid into a rogue, but a lot of the Soul Knife Rogue's features can be reflavored as time powers, like the Psybolster Knack ability kind of letting her rewind time to redo a skill check by adding her Psionic Power die to it. And the Psionic Blades feature kind of gives her an unlimited number of knives, which is really the best way to do this outside of the Cloud of Daggers spell, but that's also, not amazing, it's mostly just extra damage. But she also gets to make a bonus action attack with these Psychic Blades, and of course she can hit Sneak Attack off of them, and going all the way to level 9 means she gets 5d6 damage from that, with 7 chances to proc it on top of the normal damage from those 7 attacks. Also on the way to level 9 she is going to grab the Fey Touched feat and another ASI, upping her Dex to 20 and her Intelligence to 18. So, as the only melee-focused character here, let's do a good old damage calculation for Sakuya. Assuming that Sakuya already has Haste up and one of her Echoes out, one attack from her with a dagger is 1d6 plus 5 plus 5d6 for sneak attack, which she only gets once. She gets extra attack for 2 attacks, Unleash Incarnation for 3 attacks, Action Surge to do it again for 6 attacks, Hasted Action for a 7th attack, and a bonus action attack that's a 1d4. Meaning that in one round, Sakuya can hit you with all of her knives for 7d6 plus 1d4 plus 5d6 plus 40 or around 86 damage. And if at any point she chooses to up her con to a plus 3 instead of a plus 2, she could use Unleash Incarnation on the hasted attack and get another attack in, but I'm not going to count that. And 86 damage with no crits is pretty damn good. Plus she does have other spells and plenty of movement abilities, being able to swap with her Echo and do 2 different types of teleportation. Plus, if she got the drop on them, this amount of damage would be enough to almost one-shot either Marisa or Remu. Will she? Probably not. She's their friends now, I think, or at the very least, not enemies. Sakuya is a very dutiful maid, and no matter the task, whether it's just serving tea, cleaning at the manor, or kicking out the kleptomaniac again, she'll get it done, or die trying.
公務員編再び高魔間の幻想郷征服会議これですえ何か聞こえなかった虫か何かでしょ
Okay, so I'm really banking on you guys here. Make this video do well. I want to cover more characters from Touhou. I know I covered Sakuya here, but there are still so many characters just in the Scarlet Devil Mansion alone. Romelia, Flandre, Patchouli, Ling, her assistant. And that's just the Scarlet Devil Mansion. There's so many other factions and standalone characters. So if you want to see more Touhou, I need this video to do well. I know I've been doing a lot of gacha games recently, and while I like those, I don't want them to take over the channel. So show me what you guys can do, okay? Okay. Now, as always, a huge thank you to my patrons. There are nearly 200 of you guys, and the more of you there are, the more I can afford to do weird projects that might not do so well on YouTube, or the ones that take a lot longer and we need to pay Goblin more to do. Since we do want to keep the editor's dungeon stocked with snacks and stuff, lest he come after us. So if you want to support the channel, you can do that on Patreon for up to $20 or as little as $1. And of course, thank you to you guys for getting this far in the video. But that is going to do it for today. I will see you all next time, and as always, have a wonderful day.